Well, Happy New Year, beer nerds. Things can only get better.
That's what Dareem said back in the 90s.
And, you know, that panned out well for Brian Cox.
And Tony Blair.
Tony Blair. Oh, did he use it in his...
Yeah, it was the New Labour theme tune.
There you go. So now I said that, everything's going to be fine. Welcome to another Craft Beer Channel tradition, which is our look ahead to the next year and what's going to be big. This year, or rather last year, our audience grew so spectacularly that actually the UK for the first time became not the largest audience. So we've made sure that everything we're going to talk about today, while we're going to be talking about British breweries, we're going to be talking about them with the angle of saying that these trends
rather than specific breweries.
Exactly, are universal.
I like it.
So wherever you are in the world, this is what we think is going to be happening in 2021, and we hope it's going to be better than 2020. Is that right? Yeah. Fucking hell. So we're going to start, another tradition is to say, this is the year of the lager. How many times have I been right?
Exactly 0.
So yeah, it's a big null point for me on the year of the lager. Lager I thought would kind of have a year of being really trendy. What's actually happened is it's slowly grown to become a very popular style.
Yeah.
But it's never had a year.
It sounds like crazy to say it's grown to become a popular style, because obviously it's the predominant style around the world.
70% of what's sold worldwide.
But like in terms of like craft beer, it's not. No one's really sort of raving about it.
Yeah, in terms of good beer, even not craft beer, because there's lots of really big producers of great lager. But yeah, it's never quite had that moment, has it? But most of what has been happening around the world has been German-led.
Yeah,
you know, much like the 70% of beer that's sold out there is mostly German Pils inspired. So it's kind of lightly hopped. It's pretty dry, and it's kind of biscuity and lemony.
Yes.
So even these macro beers are kind of biscuity and lemony. You struggle to pick out those sides of it, but they are. So what I'm hoping and expecting to happen this year, and I've already seen it through in the UK, the amazing Utopian, through our adventures in New England 18 months ago now, which was at Notch, and lots of other lagers that are coming out at the moment seem to be Czech-inspired or Bohemian-inspired or decocted. Mm-hmm. So that's where you remove a bit of the mash, where you're putting the grain and the warm water together to extract the sugar. You take a bit off and you boil it. And basically you caramelise a load of sugars.
Maillard reaction releases, gets all that caramelly flavour going on.
And that goes back into the mash, raises the temperature of the mash. So it's an old way of step mashing, of slowly increasing your mash temperature. But you know, adds that caramelisation. So this is a very different style of doing your mash, and it results in very different flavours, which we should get from this beautiful beer from Utopian. You can smell it's Czech.
Certainly smells Czech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is Utopian only use British ingredients. So British malt, British yeast, British hops.
Really?
So they're using Godiva hops, which is a British hop, less earthy than many of the British hops, bit more tropical notes, and I think they're trying to bring out that kind of, you know, fresh field, unripe strawberry kind of vibes that a SARS can have in heavy doses with this Godiva hop. And, you know, it's definitely got a lovely light fruitiness, but loads of rich caramel, considering it's only 3.8.
Amazing. Very drinkable.
Yeah, incredibly drinkable, incredibly light. If you gave that to somebody who's only ever drunk macro lager, they'd be like, hey, that's tasty. If you gave that to an absolute beer nerd like me, I'd like, where the hell did you get this from?
Yeah, that's quite special, considering it's come from the UK.
You remember Untitled, who we visited,
Yeah.
and they had a beer that was a templato, so about 104, I think, in terms of gravity if you're a home brewer. So very light beer, not a lot of sugar and sweetness, and not a lot of body's going to be left over. So that's the challenge with these low ABV beers, and it tastes a lot like the Untitled. And a lot of it, the tenor from Notch as well.
Yeah, that was an absolute banger.
Beer. Yeah, I think it's an absolute stunner. I'm very excited to see what they do, and to see what they can do with British ingredients in those styles. That could be a unique kind of British angle on this.
I love that. I love the fact that they're paying homage to CZECH-STYLE pils, and they're bringing it home. Tasty.
So the next brewery we're going to go to, down in Sussex. Actually, weirdly, I went to university with one of the founders of this. I did my master's in magazine journalism with the wonderful Danny, or Daniel as he was known when we were trying to be serious journalists.
Daniel.
And he is co-founder of Beak. Now, Beak, I cycled down there and had a wonderful day there and drank mostly New England IPAs and stuff like that. But they've actually made lots of great West Coast IPAs, porters. They're very interested in bitters and milds. Like Daniel used to really enjoy those kind of beers, and that's what actually we drank a couple of times when we were at uni together. So I'm really excited to see the variation this brewery is going to put together.
Yeah.
But the beer that I've picked from these guys to give it a global reach is their table beer.
Right, so it's like quite a low alcohol beer.
Exactly.
You could really session this.
I think if you go to macro brewers and people working in PR, particularly for macro breweries, they're trying to push the idea of low and no alcohol. So 0.5 and lower. Really, I see the trend being for this strength of beer and maybe a little bit lower, which is really sessionable. So, a lot of what I drink now is probably less than 4%, just on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And then when I'm being a nerd, I'll drink the bigger stuff. So this is a table beer. So it's the kind of stuff that you sit at the table, whether it's with food or whether it's just with friends or whether it's just on your own and just sit there for a couple of hours.
I mean, when I think table beer, I think Colonel's
table beer is fantastic.
Which, like for me, going back in the day, I'd be like, it's a lower percentage. But that kind of really turned my mind around, drinking some of the Colonel offerings.
And everybody was, including myself and you, were amazed by the aroma and the flavour and the body you could get. Now pick up that beer, Brad.
Silly good.
That aroma.
I mean, it's tropical vibes.
It could be on a 7% beer, couldn't it?
It's crazy. That is crazy.
So much aroma, so much juicy, pithy citrus. It's just an assault of beautiful citrus.
My beak is on fire.
There. What?
I mean, that's great.
What percentage is that? It's 3.5. So what is amazing about that brewing, I don't know how they've done it, is that amount of aroma with absolutely no astringency, like zero. That finish is like fizzy water.
Yeah.
And yet it's front loaded with a ton of aroma. It's just rather magical. And whether it's, brilliant hop selection, which, I doubt in a brewery that size, they probably don't have that freedom, or whether it's some, with our New England IPAs where we add those hops, like homebrew wise, we add those hops right at the end, like throw them in, coldest temperature, bottle, and you just try to capture the absolute moment that those hops go, in the beer.
They've
nailed it.
They've totally nailed it. I mean, Lewis in Sussex is quite a sort of spooky, pagan place, and I wonder whether they've got some sort of witchcraft going on in that, because that is spectacularly good.
I tried to be sciencey and Brad's like, nah, witchcraft. It's a beautiful brewery as well. If you go down to see it, it's right under some white cliffs. It's like where you go like, we're just going into another industrial park. Oh my God, there's cliffs overlooking this.
It's epic.
There was live music when I was there, beautiful beer. It's just, I think it's going to be quite a magical place, and I think it might have a bit of an international reputation eventually.
Yep.
But generally, the idea of table beer, so not going, I'm not going to have a beer, it's going, I'm driving and I want to have two, or it's going, it's a weeknight and I want to have a beer to finish this day, particularly when we all work at home and we struggle to find that separation.
The line, yeah, for sure.
These kind of beers are going to be great.
I love it.
So Overtone, they're based in Glasgow in Scotland. They make incredible New England IPA, right? And that's how I got to know them. They just made sensational hypey beer juice, right? Obviously, if we were to pick a trend for 2021, it would be New England IPA. Every year would be, what's going to be big this year? It's going to be IPA. Is it going to be New England or West Coast?
New England.
It's going to be New England IPA. This beer has just taken over the world. And that's cool. We love them. The crowd love them. The geeks mostly love them.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about with this beer is where we could take IPA outside of that.
So the other angles we could go
Other angles. So whether it's going West Coasty, whether it's introducing new yeast flavours or sourness or whatever it is. Mountain IPA, which we learned was a thing a couple of months ago. Just to see, how we're going to keep variation going in New England IPA or an IPA. So I'll tell you what, I won't tell you anything about this beer. I want you to tell me what you get from this beer and see if you can see what's trying to happen here.
Okay. I can tell you what, it's murky as hell.
Yeah, absolutely. So New England looks.
It's very fresh. I mean, it's not a heavy tropical thing. It's different to any sort of IPA that I've smelled, I would say.
So for me, really green melon.
Okay, yeah, melon. It's a bit, like a watery melon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting pineapple for sure. Really soft pineapple. But I'm also mostly getting like wet, cold forest.
You heard it here first.
So after New England IPA happened, we started getting what was called hybrids, which is basically the mountain IPA. So it was, we're going to take everything that's great about the New England IPA, but we're going to dry it out a bit more so it's less sweet, and we're going to up the bitterness. Which actually, bizarrely, means you end up, where John Kimmich at The Alchemist was doing it all along and inspired the whole movement. It's just like, yeah, we'll do it the way that the guy who invented it meant to do it. But this is another way of hybridizing. So what they've done is they've taken new London fog, so this hazy New England, English yeast, and they've put lots of really old school hops in. So the hops in this are Centennial, piney. You've got Simcoe, creme caramel, dark grapefruity kind of notes, and then you've got Chinook, which is like, balls out pithy orange resin kind of notes. And actually, it's softer than all three of those things.
It's very mellow, yeah.
With, I think, on the aroma, a little hint of stone fruit underneath. And when you drink it, at 6%, really pintable. Good,
Definitely.
solid bitterness.
Yeah, quite bitter,
But
actually.
kind of juicy.
It's juicy in a different way. And it's smacking my chops, but in an unexpected manner.
I think it's a nice approach in that it's going, we're getting all the sweetness from the yeast. Let's add some savouriness with the hops.
Yes.
We're talking absolute subtleties at this point.
Yeah.
But for IPA geeks, I think it's an interesting little extra canon.
Yeah. It's definitely not going to blow your head off. But I think at this point, we don't need to blow our heads off. We've blown our heads off every which way. And it's nice to take it in a different direction. Subtlety in an IPA, in a sort of, not quite New England IPA, but that's quite a rarity, I would say, these days.
Yeah, it disappeared for a long time.
Yeah.
It did. And it's nice for us to start playing with hops again. It's so easy to go with Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic, Azacca, all these hops that just amp up the juice. And it's nice to see some old school hops going in and making a beer where you sniff it and go, that's different.
Yeah, it's different. At this point in the game, being different, I think, is
powerful.
Is powerful.
Yeah.
So we've had an absolute belter, something that's blown my socks off in terms of expectations, and something that's really surprised me. I don't know where we go from here, Johnny.
Well, we're going to disappoint you. So that's a brutal way to introduce a beer, but that's kind of the reason that I wanted to bring this on, right? So, obviously, over the last 2 or 3 years, Imperial Stouts have become very, very sweet, laden with different flavourings.
Yes.
And I guess they've moved towards what I call like a festival beer. So you have a third of it and you go, that's fucking cool. But if you were given a half of it, or if you were paying 10 quid for a bottle of it, you'd be like, well, hang on.
Bottle share beers.
Bottle share beers. Yeah, exactly
yeah.
that. So New Barns are kind of like, and they will hate me for saying this, kind of like a super band.
Yes.
So they are a combination of, it's an ex-Colonel brewer, it's an ex-Lervig sales guy and brewer, and it's an ex-Beavertown brewer. So we've got 3 people who know how to brew, know how to sell, and know how to market themselves. And what's really amazing is that they've come out with the most pintable, unhypey, perfectly made beers you could possibly imagine. So these guys are based up in Leith, which is a suburb of Edinburgh.
Yes.
making delicious, really simple beer, but they're making it exceptionally well. So I've had lovely table beer, I've had lovely pale ales, I've had I've had this beer. So go on, pick that up. Tell me what you think.
It's all the good stuff. It's wintry and warm and inviting.
It's dark chocolate.
Yeah.
It's lightly roasted coffee. It's leather. It's tobacco. It's really dark chocolate biscuits. What is wonderful, and we tried this when we did our collaboration with Glenafric to try and make, all the flavours that we think we need adjuncts to make, and we don't necessarily. And while that recipe wasn't perfect, we got some of those flavours. Here, I think they've absolutely smashed it. They've called it a plain dark beer, and they're both being honest and they're being satirical in that. They're going, it's not a plain dark beer.
And humble.
It's and humble as well. Yeah. It's an 11% absolute assault on the senses, and every flavour that you can get from specialty malt, from roasted malt, from caramelised malt is there.
So this is a non-pastry stout.
This is the anti-pastry stout.
This is the plain dark beer. Oh. I mean, boy's done good.
Mm-hmm. I think what's amazing about this beer and why I wanted to put it in and why I wanted to champion the idea of, it's mad to say, a malt-forward imperial stout. An imperial stout has to be malt-forward, right? Yeah. And I love adjunct imperial stouts. There's nothing wrong with them. They're a lot of fun. But the reason I wanted to put this in there is because if you gave this to me like wrapped up, so I couldn't see what it was, if it didn't say plain dark beer and they said, what adjuncts are in here? I think I'd say cacao nibs, lightly roasted coffee beans, maybe something with a caramel vibe, like a Biscoff biscuit or something.
I mean, it's masterful that they've managed to accomplish that without resorting to those measures. All I can say is that they're sort of working some wonder.
I don't want to say that these adjunct stouts, these fruited IPAs are shortcuts. To me, they are they're exclamation marks. They're saying this, right? And I think that all the New Barnes beers are saying, and pretty much all of them do, and Colonel have been saying it for years, and lots of other breweries have as well, is that you don't need an exclamation mark for a sentence to hit home. Sometimes a full stop does the job pretty nicely. And I think that's what this beer is. It's an imperial stout, full stop.
Yeah.
And you walk away from that sentence thinking it's a mic drop. And I think it's a beautiful fucking beer. And I haven't had a better imperial stout. I drank this in 2020. And I did not have a better imperial stout in 2020. Pastry or not.
So Johnny, as ever, I'm dumbfounded and amazed by what we've come to think is going to be big next year. So all I can say is 2021 is looking bright, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to be the year that we get back to traditional brewing. That's just not going to happen.
No.
But it is going to be the year in which we start to consider it and start to go, well, hey, is there a way we can make this more drinkable? Is there a way we can stand out from the crowd when it used to be, how can we taste like those guys?
Yeah.
And is it going to be the year at which the ingredients, again, start to be the real heroes? So if you just went, it's got cacao nibs in, people go like, sweet. Maybe this year we're going to start to go, which cacao nibs? Ooh. Or which particular carafa malt did you use for that? And I hope that that's the way that beer geeking is going to go. I think that's an important direction we need to go and start asking those questions.
I'll drink to that, mate.
Amen.